Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. To Commissioners Mary Lawson Brown, Rufus Borum, Justin Campbell, and Tammy McCaskill, you're hereby notified that a special call meeting of the City Commission is to be called and held at the regular meeting place of City Commission at City Hall, 201 North 2nd Street in the City of Palatka to begin at 5 p.m. on Thursday, May 9th, 2019. The purpose of the meeting is to hold a discussion and provide direction on the city manager search. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Roll call, please.
Mayor Terrell Hill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mary Lawson Brown. Present. Commissioner Rufus Borum.
Present.
Commissioner Justin Campbell.
Present.
Commissioner Tammy McCaskill. 4 members are present and accounted for, and you have a quorum.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner McCaskill is excused. We'll go ahead and have the invocation and the pledge by Commissioner Campbell. We'll please stand at this time.
Dear Heavenly Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to convene. We thank you for your grace and your mercy that you bestowed upon us, God. As we go forth with this meeting, God, we ask that you allow us to conduct the business of this city, God, as effective as possible. In your name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you guys know we're here to talk about our process as it relates to our city manager search. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our senior advisors who will give us additional information along with Ms. Robinson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Jim Hanson. I'm the immediate past president of the Florida City and County Management Association. I've been volunteering to help out as a senior advisor in Northeast Florida because until just very recently we didn't have any in this part of the state. We have 10 across the state of Florida. Senior advisors are retired managers that have quite a bit of seniority in the state. We volunteer our time to support professional management in cities and counties. We are appointed jointly by the State Association as well as the International City Management Association. We are not paid, we're volunteers. We may get mileage reimbursement from FCCMA for driving here, but that's it. But we have several responsibilities. One is to help smaller cities and counties through the recruitment process for professional managers because we believe in professional management. Certainly Palatka has got one of the longest records in the state for having professionally recognized by ICMA as having a council manager form of government. I have worked in Atlantic Beach and Orange Park most recently before I retired. George Forbes here with me. He is newly appointed as a senior advisor, but certainly not new to the area. He served Jacksonville Beach as their city manager for 24 years. Other Florida cities and some other places across the country. Both of us have a little over 40 years of service in this business before we retired. I'm going to turn it over to George to talk about what we found when we were asked to look over your applications and make some recommendations on that. And then I'll talk about, after that, some things we can do to help and help try to just move the discussion and answer your questions. Okay? George, you want?
One thing I'd like to say first, just driving here a couple times here in the last month, it's not like I haven't been to Palatka before, but it's been a lot of years. I was just struck by how breathtakingly beautiful, the drive it is and the river and everything else, and I feel like Palatka has a lot to offer something in this job. We were asked to review, I think, 11 applications that were picked out. And it's kind of hard to do without having a profile of the job. In other words, a profile of the job tells us what you're looking for, what you expect this person to accomplish in the next first few years on the job. And without that, it's a little bit like a little bit searching in the dark. But what I just assumed that you were looking for is someone with some of a financial background, planning and economic development. And I thought, economic development and planning would probably be a pretty strong focus of what you're looking for. We honestly, when I went through the candidates, I felt that I didn't feel it was a real strong group for you to look at. And just didn't feel it was a real strong group. There might be about 3 external candidates that you might want to talk to. On the other hand, I'm not going to make anything on it talking. I'm not going to discuss the internal candidates because you know them better than I do, so you know who the internal candidates are. So that's really a decision for the council to make whether they wanted to include the internal candidates. But looking at the external candidates, we found 3 that we thought were qualified. Again, on the other hand, there was most of the candidates, the vast majority of candidates had very little city manager experience. The experience they did have, I didn't think would be well suited towards the city of Palatka. So with that, what we recommended to your staff was first that a profile be prepared for the job, and that can be done by having you fill out and discuss with us a list of characteristics you want for the job, as well as questions about what you're looking for, what you expect this person to do in the first couple of years. Our suggestion is that be done first. And our suggestion also was, because of the candidates that you got, we thought that it might be something for you to consider to hire a management consultant or search firm to assist you with the process. So that's really what our conclusions were. Conclusions were the candidates we had were not what we thought that Palatka needed, and bottom line is profiles needed for the job, so everybody knows exactly what you're looking for. And number 2, our strong recommendation is go to a management recruiter, because they do this for a living. They know candidates all over the nation, and I wouldn't just restrict it to Florida. I would take it nationwide. I mean, I first came to Florida as a city manager from South Dakota, so I'm just saying. By the way, I came to Jack's Beach for 24 years from Las Vegas, Nevada area, so I traveled 2,300 miles of crack many times in my career, so I wouldn't restrict it to something distant state. Jim came from Georgia, and again, we're not one person I was talking about being mentioned today was somebody who's just going to look at this as a stepping stone to another job. And while I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for somebody to be aggressive and want to move up, I also think that you want somebody who really wants to be here. You want somebody who just wants a job. You want somebody who really wants to be here and who is excited about the challenges your city has to offer.
So what headhunting firm do you typically, what other
Well, there's about a half a dozen that do a lot of work in Florida. There is one firm in particular that's probably got 90% of Florida sewn up, but our suggestion would be, I don't know what your purchasing policy is, but you go out for requests for proposals, and that unfortunately that lengthens the process a lot, because first you have requests for proposals, then you have to select a company, negotiate a fee, and move on from there. But I think and that's going to have a cost to it, but there's also a huge cost, as you've seen, I think, over the last few years in hiring the wrong person.
Agreed.
Okay. Thanks, George. Let me make a couple of points, and then both of us will be available to answer questions or discuss things with you. As George said, the selection of a new city manager is probably one of those important decisions you guys and ladies are going to make for your city for a long, long time. And every city is different. They're different in size, they're different in their needs. And while one might think just hire a good city managers come with different talents, different experiences that they can bring to the table. One city may have a financial crisis and they need a financial person that can help bring it all together. Another city may have, maybe your biggest employer just left. You really need economic development. Other cities need roads and sewer systems upgraded because they're easy to fall into disrepair. And another city may need someone to bring in, hire and develop qualified staff. So everyone is different. And it's critical for a city council to find the right fit, not just in what the manager brings to the table to fit your needs, but someone that fits with you personality-wise, someone that you feel comfortable dealing with. Because if the partnership works right, I hate to use this word, you can almost have miracles in your city. If everybody does their job, like the city council and the manager, and you work effectively, over time you can create great things. I've seen it happen in many cities, but you've got to get the right person and the right fit of skills and abilities and personality. Tonight we're here to talk with you not only about our findings on the candidates that you had, but about some options for searching for a new city manager. I'll talk about very quickly some of the pros and cons of each. Basically, in the time frame, you essentially have three options. You can go to the search firm. That's going to cost you probably between $50,000 and $30,000. That's the going rate for cities across Florida. We have had a list of search firms we've made available to your staff already that have a lot of work in Florida. You can do it in-house with your staff. That's the lowest cost. However, the staff may not have the expertise in some areas because they don't often recruit city managers. They're different than hiring other types of jobs. And it's often best not to have your staff not too involved in hiring their new boss. In past searches for Palatka have not turned up maybe the number of candidates we think you should have. So I think, and from what I've seen, I think you can sell yourselves a lot better for the community, have a better description and reach out better to the candidates. I think you can do better. The last option is that use the senior advisors, which are George and I have been helping. We are counselors, not consultants, but we can help in some limited ways with no cost to your city for us. We offer assistance and guidance in several key areas of the search process, but it does require some work and expense from your city. We only do this for smaller cities and counties because we are volunteer. There's only 10 senior advisors across the state. We have some openings now, so we can't do everything for everybody.
We don't do background checks.
Yeah, we don't do background checks for openers. We do a lot of things like that. What we can do, first off, in the initial step, as George mentioned, you need to determine what you want. We give a position profile questionnaire that each of you would fill out. We could help to consolidate that and then present it back to the council to approve. So you guys can decide what you want. So we're not here to tell you what you want, but we can help pull it out a little bit, try to prioritize what the most important things are. That's very important. That can include minimum education, whether you're willing to look at someone outside the state of Florida. We think you probably ought to keep your options open on that, and various other things. Search firms do this a little bit differently. They often meet with each of you individually and at great length to get your input. Obviously, they can do more than we can because we're volunteers, and that's why they charge in their full time. The next step is assisting with the advertisements to basically try to go out and get people interested in your job. We do not actively recruit individuals as senior advisors, but we can help the city after the position profile is put together and get it out on the street. Search firms usually prepare a much more elaborate description of your city. And I think that's one thing that may have been missing in the past. It's a beautiful city. It's a riverfront city. You can afford to live in a nice house, maybe even fronting the river. We've looked at the real estate prices. There are a lot of good things going for Palatka. I don't think that's been sold enough. Certainly the fact that you've got 95 years of experience in a council manager form of government, even though you've had recent turnover, that may have turned some people off if they look that up in the news. But in the long term, you've had a very, very stable batch of managers. So I think that's part of the story that needs to be told for Palatka. Again, though, in this case, the search consultants can help you a lot more with that. As part of the advertisements, often the professionals, and we go either way, but often the professional search firms know many of the candidates that are out there looking for jobs. And they may call and say, hey, Joe, you may want to consider this city, and it's a good place. Often they can serve then as someone to talk to about an honest evaluation of the city. What would I be getting into as a candidate? Tell me what the pros and cons are, all this kind of thing. And in Florida, there's an open records law that basically says every applicant you get is going to be given to the press. And that's great for Florida, but what it means is for many cities managers that have jobs, they're very reluctant to put out a resume unless they feel pretty strongly about wanting to work someplace and feel strongly about being able to get in the top batch of people that can get to an interview. Because you get too many stories in your local paper that you've been looking for jobs, and your own council may start to say, hey, you need to leave. So there's some real hesitancy there. So it's good sometimes to have that search company as someone they can talk to and try to decide if this is the application, the place they want to be. But hopefully, one way or another, you'll get a pretty good list of candidates if you can sell your city better. Once the applications are in, one thing your senior advisors often do is go through the list of applicants to sort them out. Usually we would give you 3 groups. One that the top group that we would recommend you interview, the most qualified people. Usually there's a second tier of people that may meet the qualifications minimally, and there's always a large group of people that just don't, they just put their resume in and they don't remotely meet the qualifications of the job. It is important for the council to choose who you want to interview. Again, it's not up to us to tell you what you want in a manager. It's not up to us to tell you who to interview. We can just go through the list for you and kind of cut it down a little bit. During the interview process, we can be here and assist you a little bit and help you sometimes with questions that would focus on what you need in your city, but at the same time to ask the same questions of all the candidates so you're treating everybody fairly and help avoid any of the questions that may run afoul of all the federal laws about, you can't ask them about their religion, this kind of stuff. So we can help with that. Search firms would also be here to help you with that kind of a process through the whole thing. Most important, choosing the manager has to be your choice. Again, we don't recommend who you should hire. And normally a search firm won't either, but they'll give you a list of their top recommendations. They can say, this manager is solid, they work great. Maybe they usually won't say bad things about people, but sometimes you'll see managers with an experience where they've been every place like 2 years and left. And that kind of sends up a red flag sometimes. Why did they leave? And so many. And oftentimes they have gaps between jobs. We don't do the background checks, again, as George said, but your professional search consultants often do that for you. Now, if once you get through that, you choose the manager that you want to negotiate with, then it's time to do the background checks. All right, your staff, if we're involved, we don't do that because, again, we're volunteers. Your staff can do a lot of the Google searches for the newspaper stories about a candidate, find out if they had some scandal or something in their last city or what there is to find. Typically, you'd also use some professional companies to do the financial background and criminal record check. Sometimes your police department can do all that for you. The search consultants obviously handle that pretty comprehensively and be able to give you better information. Once you get through that process, and hopefully you picked the manager you want, then you negotiate the contract terms. We can provide you with a ICMA recommended contract for your manager, and your city attorney can very easily amend that as fits Palatka. But we don't get involved in that, and actually the search firm should not either. Sometimes they do. Normally it's your mayor and your city attorney that wind up trying to negotiate that with your successful candidate. Time frame. You're probably going to be about 6 months from start to end. On one hand, if you go with the search firms, you have to go through some kind of a process that meets your purchasing requirements. But they can work a little bit quicker than we can because they're full-time. But they may be just a little bit longer because it depends on how long that process is you have to go through to review and pick the one that you want to do. But with it's usually about 6 months because you go through a certain amount of time to leave the applications out and get them back in to negotiate with somebody. And then if they're employed, typically they give 30 to 60 days notice to the current employer that they're going to be leaving. So it just takes longer than you think. One thing you may want to consider, if need be, is bringing in an interim manager. You've got your clerk working as an interim, and if that's fine, that's great. Also, there are a number of what we call managers in transition, managers in Florida that do not have jobs currently. Often a lot of them are willing to take temporary assignments, so that's an option. As Drigger says, it's a little odd to be applying and and acting manager at the same time. There's usually some sensitivity to that in some cities. But that's an option. We can help, if you wanted to do that, we can help distribute that information about an interim position being available. But at any rate, we're here to help any way you want to go. We think, we talked about it a couple of times, Palatka has a lot to sell. It's a great community. We think you should be able to do pretty well with and getting a top-rate manager here. I'd just like to help any way we can to help you get to that point. So with that, George and I are here to help you any way we can, answer questions, and do anything we can.
Any questions from the commission?
I think he summed it up pretty well. I mean, with all of the different notes I've taken, he pretty much just says we have a little work to do in terms of putting the criteria together as it relates to the city manager that we would like to select, what we're looking for, and we just move forward from there. So I thought he summed it up very well. So we have work to do.
Anything else on the side?
I'd like to make sure that whoever we get, that we have somebody who understands to help us find them, that they have to work with all of us and work with all of our staff people and take care of them. I think we've had several interviews and stuff with folks, and I think most of them thought that we had nail on the head. I just have not. I've sat here a long time, and I just have not been really satisfied. I thought that this town has more to offer, like you said, and we need to have it where we put that foot forward and make sure we get somebody who has that fire in their belly. We thought we had, and we found out, because people interview really good, but when it comes down to the everyday things, they aren't able to do it. So.
You need to offer enough of a salary to get people in here too. I think your salary range is fine, but you may have a hard time hiring somebody at the very bottom of that salary range with the experience and everything that you want. You're going to have to be, maybe not the top, but certainly a lot better than the bottom, probably, would be our best guess.
So one of the things you talked about was you can assist with appointing an interim or someone in transition.
If you want to hire an interim, we can help spread that information out. Actually, we've got a conference coming up here at the end of this month. That might be a good time to talk to several people about that and suggest they consider taking it. It's not unusual for either managers that are unemployed or sometimes retired managers, although not senior advisors, but retired managers to be willing to take on a short-term assignment, 3 or 6 months or something like that, 9 months in some cases. Just depends on what people want.
Yeah, I think, speaking for myself, I think one of the things that we look at in the last conversation we had as it related to the interim position was that there was a specified time period of how that could continue on. I think we've had Ms. Driggers doing double duty for quite a long period of time. And I think it's kind of productive at a certain point. It gets to a point of diminishing returns, and we need to consciously consider getting a retired manager or an interim in the interim so that we can continue on and not have all the duties doubled up. Any other comments from the commission?
Say something. I want to know how the rest of our commission feels.
I mean, I'm here to listen. I'm here to make sure that we make the best decision for this community, and that's why we have them here. So I'll take what they've said in consideration in order to, as we move forward, and then I'll make my position. But right now, I don't feel like it's necessary to do so.
Commissioner Board.
Well, no, I don't have any more comments. I mean, that's why we're here. We were here to hear the feedback and take a position forward. And we've already discussed, what we've our current position and what we're looking for, and we do have Betsy doing double duty, and we want to make sure that we not overload her to the point where she just get sick or whatever it may be. So we don't want that to happen. So we gotta fill the role, whether it's temporary with the interim manager or whatever it may be. So that's why we're here.
Being a city manager alone can take a lot of hours per week. And I'll testify to that. Did that for many, many, many years. Happy to be able to back off a little bit,
Right.
especially with hurricane season coming this way.
So,
We're getting ready.
can't say the H word in here.
We're getting ready.
Anything else from the commission? Ms. Robinson?
No, sir.
So we've got, you gentlemen are going to be around for a little bit. I'm sure there's some other questions that the commission may want to ask offline.
Okay.
As it pertains to what's in place. It's one of the things I didn't do is open the floor up for public comment as a part of this meeting. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing no one, I'll close public comment. Gentlemen, we want to thank you for coming forward today and also for help in the recent process. We look forward to continually working with you in an effort to try to move forward. And I think the commission, one of the things I want to find out from the commission is to make certain that we want to come up with a decision as to where we are. Do you want to take a moment? Do you want to talk to our senior advisors to maybe get a better feel and then ponder on it before our next meeting or what? But we're at a point where I think we've got to start to make decisions, particularly if we decide to go the route of using a professional company. You're talking 6 months. Even without that, you're talking at least a fraction of that time period, at least 50% of that time period. In any regards, we've got to start to move forward with the next steps as we continue on. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion on the floor. Adjourn.